So, actually, okay, so what's the point of the Huntress? There are a lot of these binary pairings that we've been talking about. Again, we find another game. Split Fiction was heavy with structuralist ideas. And I like to argue that this one is as well. I like to argue that Hollow Knight as well. Now, in structuralism, or the structuralist way of both writing novels and discerning or analyzing novels, critiquing novels, you look for societal structures to infer meaning in the written work, and also combinations of elements in the written work to conflate or intermingle disparate concepts. You can do that in a bunch of different ways. We talked about semiotics in 2 streams prior, I believe. We talked about the semiotics around the conductor and their life support IV system of thread. Here we have another set of them. Did you play the needle in for her? I think so, but we'll do it. We'll do it. But let me beep boop boop pop. Hornet has been described as a hunter or a huntress, the female version of it. She's a weaver. She knows well how weavers are born and their birth hunger or birth craze, as she herself describes it. This thing is directly associated to Hornet by being called Huntress. They have a kind of kinship. They, game notices game kind of thing. That was the first interaction they had. Like, oh, you're dangerous. Yeah, you're dangerous. Let's just not. Yeah, good idea. They are of a kind, as it were. They seem to be of a kind when it comes to their nature as well, recognizing each other, not just their ability. And they share names. Hornet has been referred to as a huntress by other characters in this world, and she was referred to as a huntress, I believe, in Hollow Knight 1 as well. So, by applying the name and applying some of the dialogue here, we have a strong affinity between Huntress and Hornet. By linking those 2 characters together, the way that the game has done, it will further link whatever those characters represent, or the themes and the subject matters that they bring into every interaction between the 2 characters. Here we have motherhood. Hornet did survive her mother, or her mother survived Hornet, but her mother also sacrificed herself for Hornet, becoming one of the dreamers, locking away the light of life in the Hollow Knight 0.9, permitting Hornet to live. That is, in theme, akin to what this huntress is trying to stave off. So suddenly we have a binary pairing instead of just a connection. We have motherhood as sacrifice and motherhood as remaining, or shedding that sacrifice, not sacrificing. To sacrifice or not to sacrifice, that is the question. While motherhood is the combiner here. Okay, what does the game want to say about that? What does it want to propose to us? Well, we don't know quite yet. We're probably gonna see that only in recognizing or reading into the events that will unfold, or the fate of the Huntress, or even just this interaction potentially. But we have now combined or fit together 2 characters, 2 themes through those characters, and have had a split in how those ideas or those roles are approached by the 2 different characters. Not that Hornet necessarily is a mother, but there's a strong, at least from Hollow Knight, there was a strong connection to motherhood as far as Hornet goes as well. Why would the game want to do this? Well, there are a bunch of different reasons why a storyteller would like to create these binary pairings. It gives us essentially a control group. It gives us, because if your main character, or just a side character, if any character in a story decides to go a certain venue with their life choices. For example, self-sacrifice is a way of motherhood. I'm gonna let myself die or be incapacitated or whatever so that my child can survive. That is a choice. That choice has a bunch of consequences to it. It's got a bunch of trauma associated to it. But standing on its own, it only means what it does. There's not as much negative space around that choice. It's the choice and it's the consequences of the choice. Now, where you create the negative space around that choice, where you can start wondering about the what ifs, because you kind of need what ifs to question whether or not the choice was valid or correct. And that's the big moral dilemma. After you've had choice, after you have consequences, then the question comes, was the choice correct? Or should I have done differently? Most characters kind of linger on that point. They don't know. Did I make the right choice? Did I condemn someone I care about to suffer just for my own sake? Or did I condemn myself just for the dubious future of someone else? That question is usually a fairly good growing ground for character growth or character conflict. But if you also provide the reader or the character with an example of the other choice, that negative space around the initial choice, then you can sort of project what actually would happen. You are permitting the character with a control group to look and behold what would have happened if they had chosen differently. Now, there can be a bunch of different reasons for wanting to have that control group available to us. It permits us to discuss a certain theme or topic from both angles, which is generally a good way from a, maybe not a character depiction, but at least from a philosophical depiction in whatever work you're working on. It permits us to essentially, yes, on the other hand, yes, but on the first hand, on the third hand, fourth hand, fifth hand, sixth hand, it permits us a debate around the topic, which the character trauma, the character drama would not. The character drama is simply a solipsistic exercise, while this control group permits us to lift the conversation from being a purely solipsistic one into being a philosophical one. That, of course, can drag the character along to permit them a certain philosophical height or altitude that they otherwise might not be permitted if all they were doing is second-guess their own choices. It also, of course, builds the same kind of bridges that we talked about 2 streams ago when we talked about semiotics, where it creates these thematic links that you can further build upon if you link whatever you have already linked, in this case 2 kinds of motherhood, or sacrifice or not sacrifice, and you start linking those in turn, and you can create this rosary, this bead necklace of different themes and different ideas that are all connected in one way or shape or form. It's neat. I like it. It's fun to work in those spheres of having both options or both choices available to you. Not necessarily for the sake of showcasing what the correct choice would be, but rather permit both the characters and the audience to interact with both consequences and wider consequences. Or for that matter, just project that question, maybe not so much just from a solipsistic standpoint from the characters, but also onto the audience themselves. Let's see here on the dark. You gave her food for her babies. If you don't give her food till Act 3, you find her dead, devoured by her babies. Ooh. Fun. Alright. Let's carry on a little bit.
That's fine.
Your choice is your own, tall mother, your choice. Choices and consequences. You won't be judged by me. I've seen enough sacrifice. I saw my... Okay, then this is not even subtext anymore. This is your choice. Your consequences. You won't be judged by me because I have seen that. I've seen enough sacrifices, she says. I've no love for the act. What is it, 3 lines? 4 lines? Essentially could... Okay, let's do a close reading of it. Your choice is your own, tall mother. Your choice, your consequences. You won't be judged by me. I do not have a horse to stand on. I have not... Either I have not had to make the choice myself, or, alternatively, I know the weight of the choice. I know how hard a choice that can be. Not necessarily because Hornet is a mother, but Hornet's mother, the weaver, the dreamer that we had in the first game, she had also suffered, well, made the choice and then suffered for it, and Hornet had also suffered for it. Hornet, it seemed to us from that little segment, I mean, we don't see a lot of Hornet in the original game. What, we have 4 or 5 encounters with her? Altogether, 5 I believe, if you count the last one. And one of them is when the Hollow Knight actually releases the mother from her dream, and Hornet comes there and says, yeah, I let you do this. I think it's the right choice. Now please go, I want to mourn my mother. She hates the fact that her mother was lost to her. She hates the fact that she had to permit her mother's sacrifice to be undone, or at least ended. So, this whole thing could essentially be that she resents her mother for making this choice. She resents her mother for not going through the motions or the distractions that Huntress is doing. Maybe it would have been better to kill a bunch of other creatures so that she would have kept her mother. Maybe the sacrifices or the murder of many others to Hornet would have been better or preferable than the self-sacrifice of one she loved. I have no love for the act. I have no more love for the sacrifice because that sacrifice stole love from me.